Unity provides a whole host of UI components, but one thing they don't actually include is the ListBox. So we are going to create a ListBox ourselves. So we're going to use the button as a template. So we're going to use the button template, or we're going to use a button template to create items in the list. And then we're going to programmatically add them. And then, just for fun, we are going to also include a click. So that when you click an item, it returns the index that was clicked. Very handy. So you could have like all your levels and all that kind of stuff. So yes, this I managed to kind of calm things down, but I kind of raced through a couple of bits there. So if you need to pause the video, then I'm giving you fair warning. But yeah, as always, all of this coding stuff happens after the fade. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a button, and this is going to be our dynamic, our element. So our, it's not on screen yet, so we'll press F there, and we'll press T to get there, and I think I'm still in some weird mode. Okay, so there we go. So there we have our button, which is in 16:9 ratio. I'll just make sure that the canvas is going to be scaled with the screen there. So I'm going to assume that this is going to be 1920 by 1080 and scale it equally by width and height. So that's what we have there. And then the button, which is very, very tiny. So I'll put it into sort of right size there. Okay, so this is going to be our sort of prefab, and we can change what the contents of the prefab is, but this is sort of generally what our button is going to look like. The next thing I want to do is I want to create a scroll view. So this is the scroll view here. Now, the scroll view is great. I never use it for anything else other than the purpose that we're making this video for. But you could put like an image in there and you'd be able to scroll it around, so you could have like a larger image inside a smaller area. So if you're using a mobile phone, for example, you could like, you know, zoom into the image, and then you can, you know, move that image around there, and it's got these grab handles here and everything. So we're not going to be moving anything horizontally. So I'm going to uncheck that. And the next thing is we want to look at where everything's going to go. So the viewport is this object here. So if I click on viewport, you see that this has now exposed this on this side, and then we have our content. Our content, this panel here, is going to be where we put everything. So that's where we're going to put everything. Now you notice that it's not the same size as the actual panel here. We're going to fix that in just a second, but first I want to go back to the button, and I want to add another component to this, and what I want to call this is a layout element. So I have my layout element here, and I'm going to add a couple of things here. So I want the minimum width to be whatever the element is. So in this case it's 406 pixels, and then the height is 76. So I want that to be the same here. So my minimum width and my minimum height. So my minimum width is 406 and height is 76. There's also preferred width and preferred height. We can probably just leave that as is just now, so we'll just leave that as is. Again, we'll make the text a little bit easier to see. So this is going to be our button prefab here. So that's our button setup. We just want to add that layout element in there, and what that does is it tells any parent controls how to actually like render this object, and we need this, and we need to tie this in to a content fitter element. So if we go back to our content here, you see that we don't have anything. It's just basically a point and space with a rect transform on it, and that's it. We're going to add our content size fitter. and we can specify the horizontal fit to be unconstrained, that's fine. And then the vertical fit we can put to the minimum size. So this is us deciding that we are going to be showing a certain size of element there. So I think that's right. Let me just, we'll write some code and we'll figure it out. Okay, so I am going to add another button here. So we need to be able to basically put things into here. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a bit of script that takes this button here, instantiates a copy of it, and then adds it as a child to this object here. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, so I want to add another button here. So this is going to be our add object button. So I'm going to put this right beside here, and I'm going to call this add object button. And I'm going to change the text to add object. And again, I'm going to make the text a little bit bigger so we can actually see it. And now I am going to save my scene just in case it breaks. So I'm going to create a new folder, scenes, ScrollView demo, and then I'm going to create another folder for scripts. Oh dear, that's not how you spell scripts. And inside there, I am going to create a C# script called add object to list. Might as well call it a list, because for all intents and purposes, what we're doing here is we're creating a list box. Okay, and then I'm going to double click this, wait for Visual Studio to fire up. Okay. Alright, so the first thing we want to add here is we want to add the prefab. We want to add a reference to prefab so that when we click on the add button, in fact we don't need to update any of these things here, so that when we add it we instantiate this copy. So I'm going to do public game object button, or well, item template. We'll call it item template because it is the template for each item. So public, oh, we also need the game object where that gets placed. So public game object content. So that's the content there. So we need a method now, and this is going to be our event handler. So when we click on the add object button, it adds an object to the list. So I'm going to call this add button click. And we're going to make a copy of this, and we're going to set the parent to be this here. We may have to change the position of this, but we'll see how we get on. Okay, so oh, we also have to add one more component as well, which is a kind of important one that I missed. So we'll do that just now actually. So if we go back to content, if we add this as a parent, it just automatically puts it at the top left hand corner there, or whatever position we put inside here. But we really want it to be in some kind of layout. So we're going to add a vertical layout group. So every time we add to this, it places it vertically in a stack. So we're going to add a vertical layout group. And the spacing, we're going to change that to 8. Let's make it 4 pixels. So 4 pixels, and then the child alignment we'll leave there. We'll leave them as is just now, and then that should be that. Okay, so back to code. So add button var copy equals instantiate item template. So that is us. We've made a copy of our prefab. And we just need to add it to be the parent of this. So we do copy.transform.parent equals content.transform. And that's it. That's all we're doing, is we're saying that the parent of this object here is the transform of this object here. And I think that's as far as it goes for code. There's not a lot of code in this example, we just want to show what these things are. We're going to add another click functionality to it, but just hold on for a minute. Let's just make sure we've got everything correct here. Okay, so when we create that, we want to add that to the transform. Okay. So I have my add object button. I'm going to add my add object to list script to this button, and then I'm going to add the click event for it. So add object button, and then the function I want is add button click. Okay, and then I've got my item template, which is this button here. So I drag this one over, and then the content view is this one here. Okay, and I'll save my scene again. So now when I run it, so I run the game here. Let's bring this up a bit. Okay, so there we go. So when I run it, this button here should add these buttons into this list. So there's button 1, button 2, button 3, 4, and so on. And you see that they are all sort of uniform size, but they are slightly off-centered. And you see that, yeah, that's not quite what we were looking for there. So if we go back to content, it says upper left. Let's make that middle center, and see if that gives us our no, it's still doing that there. Actually, I think it's probably because this button here, if we change the pivot point of this to be, let's change that to be 1. Okay, I think it's because the pivot in there was off. Okay, so add object. No. Okay. Alrighty. So why? Okay, I just want to point out I tried this earlier on today and it worked a charm. But as soon as, of course, I want to do a demo of it, it just goes no. Okay, so the content is there, spacing is there, padding is there. Maybe we don't want the height. Height was fine. No, I didn't think it would be height either. And it could be copy.transform.local position equals vector 3.0. I mean, it could be that. This might actually break it. I mean, I don't see why it shouldn't be there, so that's fine. No, it's just not letting it in there. It's because this button is actually huge. So why is it huge? What did I do wrong? So force child expand for width and height. For vertical layout, I don't think we need that. Click on OK, add object. No, we still have that huge button. Why? Do I have a scale on here? Nope. It's always much more fun when things go wrong, I suppose. Okay, so upper center. I don't want to do width and height. My button minimum width is 406, is that right? Width is 406, height is 76. Okay. No, see, the problem is, well, the buttons are the right size this time, they're just overlapping. So Okay, well this is a fine pickle. Okay, I don't see why. Okay, I don't understand why this isn't working the way that it should be working. So the spacing should just be the space in between the buttons. So when I add a button, I add a next button, it should put in the space between here and here. So that should be the 76, but clearly that's, you know, whatever value it is. I'm wondering if this doesn't have a scale on it, does it? No, this doesn't have a scale. This doesn't have a scale. That doesn't have a scale. Okay. Just get vertical on there, spacing that. Nope, that seems fine. Nope, okay, well, it's working with that spacing there. I guess you'll need to maybe play around with the spacing there. But you can see now that we have our items inside the button, our buttons inside the items there, inside the list box. But really, we want to be able to click on there and then, you know, get different items. So I am going to create an integer here. So I'm going to say copy.get component, get component in children text dot text equals index +1 dot toString. Okay, and I need to add a UI component. Okay, so I want to set the text property of the text component in the children. And why am I saying that? Because this is the text component here. So I have text here. So I want to change this value here to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I take the value in index 1 and then I make it a string. Because it accepts a string. Yeah, don't worry about that. That's Unity's UI playing up. So running this now, we'll see that we get 1 in there because every time we add 1, it's not incrementing just yet. So if I do index ++ and then run this, we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So now that we have that, I want to add a clicker so that when the player presses 1, then they can move on to like the next scene, or they can move on, you know, choose a weapon or that kind of thing. So, but I need to know the index, which is why I have this variable down here. So now I can do copy.get component, and this time I want to get the button component on the object we created. And then there's an onClick property, and I want to add a listener to that. Add listener, and I'm going to do it in line. And what that means is I am going to do this. So it's looking for some kind of action. And the way we define an action is we need to know the function signature. So the function signature of this particular action is no parameters. And the way we specify no parameters is we put 2 brackets together like that. And then we need to specify what code will be done when we click this action. And we use the equals greater than sign. And then we just put a block as if we were writing normal code. Okay. So this is the sort of format. I'll just tidy this up a bit. This is the format of our sort of blank action. So we have basically an anonymous method. Rather than creating another function somewhere else in the code, we have it inline. So we're saying this function takes no parameters. It's anonymous, so we don't need a name. So normally we'd have a name and a return type, but we don't need that because it's anonymous. And we are saying that it is defined by the code that goes inside this object here. So I have to make a copy, a local copy of index, or else this won't work. So copy of index equals index, and there's a few articles out there. If you do a search for C# closures, then you'll see there's an issue with this. But basically, if I did it with index, this gets recompiled. At compile time, this index would have the number of buttons that we create. So I can't use that. So okay. So what I'm going to do.
McCafferty! You're teasing!
So in this example, all we're going to do is we're going to do debug.log and then index number copy of index. So anyway, so as I was saying before the technical problems, I need to make a copy of this because closures. So if you do a search for C# closures, I'll try and find a link and post it below. But basically, we need to make a copy of this. All right. So now when I run this, I'll keep console there, and when we add the objects, so I'll just put 6 up here just now because well, in fact, let's make it 7 or 8, whatever it is. You notice that nothing gets clicked when I use the mouse there, and that'll be the same on Android as well. So when you use your finger to scroll, you won't see anything, you won't click anything, but when you actually click something, everything gets handled by Unity. That's what I'm trying to say. So let's say we click the third item here. So watch what happens inside the console window. We should get well, actually we'll get index, so we'll get 2. So there we get number 2, and then for 4 we should get number 3. And then for 6, we should get number 5. And then for number 8, which is down the bottom here, click that, and we get number 7. So that's as we have everything all set up. Now, you can put any code you want in here. So to do anything you need for the current index. So if you could take this code here, and you could manipulate this and then change this code to fit your particular needs. So for example, if you want to load in your levels, then you could put it inside here. If you want to change the look and feel of this object over here, which by the way, it doesn't need to be, it's currently in view. So if I grab the button there and I move it outside the view so you can't see it, when you run the game, you still have that object in the scene and it still creates the buttons. But if I add, if I add a, I don't know, an image to it. So if I add this image here, I change the color of it to red so that we can actually see it. When we run this now, we'll see that we get the image as part of it as well. So you can see that it really is a template for your list items. So yeah. So you could run through, database calls, whatever it is, and then for each item you then add it into the list, and then you can access the listeners. You can add a listener for each item, and then decide what to do when you click on that item. And that's it. Yeah, that's lists. So there we have it, folks. How to create a list box in Unity. Apologies for there was it was a bit rushed towards the end there. These things happen, I guess. I was told to hurry up, clear out and stuff. So anyway, so I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks so much for watching, and until next time, catch you guys later. Bye bye.